We're here in Bolton, Vermont, and we're going to spend the afternoon with artist and cartoonist Alison Bechdel. She is going to teach us the secret to superhuman strength.
I love the puzzle of trying to make a story out of my life. I personally have a need to do that. And as it turns out, other people are interested enough in it that they'll buy a book. And so it gets to be my job. It's very strange, but I'm grateful for it because I like doing it. I need to do it. I need to keep figuring my life out. I keep thinking maybe I'll get to a point in my life where I no longer have this compulsion to keep track of myself and write about it. But I'm not there yet. I love the feelings when I'm exercising, I'm on a long run or a bike ride, or when I'm drawing on a deadline and I'm really focused on what I'm doing.
That was a long time.
It was, and it was my first time up. And what I was thinking the whole time was, it's so much harder when someone's watching, but that awareness made me relax.
That's my favorite feeling in the world, that flow state. And so I'm always in quest of getting back to that spontaneity, too, of childhood, where you weren't deliberating or editing or, getting frustrated and starting over. You were just doing your thing. Today, I thought I would do this Secret to Superhuman Strength workout, which combines all the different exercises I've done over the course of my life. Well, not all of them. I left a few out.
You did it! How do you feel?
Superhumanly weak.
And this is just
a typical day. This book, The Secret to Superhuman Strength, is a book I've been working on for 8 years now. It's a book on the surface about my exercise life. I've always loved doing exercise of various kinds, but that's really not the whole story. It's kind of about the mental state that I sometimes get into when I'm exercising. It's really, an anxiety management tool. Well, the way the book is organized, it's chronological. It goes through my whole life. It begins when I'm born in 1960. And each chapter is one decade of my life. So it brings us right up to the end of the 2020s. I turned 60 in 2020. And I don't want to come across as an exercise evangelist. I really don't care if people exercise or not. I know it's not everybody's thing. It just happens to be my thing and my way into this inner calm that I'm always in quest of. It was my first real long bike ride. A friend introduced me to biking. We were going up a really long hill and I was just beating myself up. And yes, I had this moment of simultaneously realizing I was just a nervous wretch of a person and accepting it.
So isn't that beautiful?
That's gorgeous, and this is the same one that is in the comic, right?
It is, yeah.
That is cool.
When I started out, no one was watching me, and that was the only reason I could do it. I feel like I became a cartoonist because it was so under the radar. It wasn't fine art, it wasn't literary writing. I just didn't have the kind of confidence that I would have needed to have to just go out into the big wide world. So I was a cartoonist. I was working in a subculture as a cartoonist. I was had these double layers of disguise and protection. And so as I've moved farther out into the world, I'm losing those things. Now cartooning is like an art form, and it does get scrutinized the way, literature does. So, yeah, the rules are all kind of changing. It's tough to keep up. Got to stay on my toes.
It is different. I mean, you're in a different place. People are watching.
I know. Like this book, they've printed like 70,000 copies of this book. My first book, it was probably like 2,500.
Fun Home continues to live. Are you allowed to talk about it, or?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know anything. All I know is that there's going to be one. So.
It started as your life that turned into a book that became eventually a Broadway musical after 7 years, thanks to two very talented women, talented male director. And now that director is going to make a movie.
Yeah. And Lisa Crone, the playwright, is writing the screenplay for the movie. Yeah.
Do you have any preference who might play you in the film version?
I would love for Beth Malone to do it, the same woman who did it on Broadway. It was hard to tell that story of Fun Home, I'm sorry to go on and on about Fun Home. Like, am I going to talk about that my whole life? Maybe I will. I did start drinking at the same time that I was doing that to kind of manage the anxiety that I was feeling at taking on this project that was not only, going to reveal family secrets, but was an artistic risk. I didn't know if I could pull it off. I didn't know if I had the skill to do that. But I'm not advising young artists to take up drinking. Please don't do that. It's a terrible, terrible habit. Yeah, it was really hard to break that habit of habitual drinking, but I feel so much better and so much more able to access that flow state that I wanted, that I was trying to get through drinking. That's not the way to get it. Part of how I coped with that in this book is by looking at other writers who I admired and looking at how they managed these things in their lives. Like Jack Kerouac, for example, who drank himself to death, or Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who was addicted to laudanum. I compare myself to Margaret Fuller, who's trying to figure out her life as a feminist in the middle of the 19th century. I compare that to my own struggles figuring out my calling when I was in my 20s. So there's this other level of the book where I'm looking at these writers and their lives and their struggles and finding parallels to my own. This is the first book I've ever done that is in full color. My other books just sort of had tints that I would do a little ink wash and it would get turned into color. But this is real color, as you can see, all kinds of bright colors. My deadline was like crashing down on me, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do all this myself. So Holly, my partner Holly, stepped into the breach and did this work. But it was actually much more difficult than you might think. This is like a big aerial view of the Michigan Women's Music Festival. Here's what the color to that page looks like. Separate layers, like this is the cyan layer. This is the magenta layer. Like the way you combine cyan, magenta, and yellow. All these tiny little bits of stuff that she was doing, not in color at all, but in gray. Here's our little map. Like if an area was green, it had to be on both the yellow layer and the cyan layer, and she had to figure that out. It's actually the way comics used to be colored in olden times, like for comic books or the Sunday funnies.
Working with your wife is...
You might think that would be fraught.
Complex?
It was complex. And I'm used to not collaborating with anyone. That's kind of why I'm a cartoonist, because it's like all me. So it was a stage of personal growth that was really actually exciting. Like I had to trust her. I had to turn over control to her and let her do her thing.
And relationships are something that you also talk about in the book. She's in the book.
Yes, I know. Like she let me write about our relationship. I'm very grateful to Holly for letting me do that. I did say to her once early on in our relationship, okay, if we're going to do this, you have to let me write about our relationship. And I think she said yes, but I didn't get it in writing. Plus, we were engaged in this intense work together during the pandemic. I work at home alone in this room all the time anyhow, so I didn't It wasn't like an adjustment. Plus, I didn't have to go anywhere, and I had this book I had to finish, so it was kind of perfect. I just stayed here and worked, which is my favorite thing to do ever. One thing I'm trying to do that gets me more in touch with joy and spontaneity is drawing with a brush, which is a really different kind of drawing for me anyhow than with a pen. A pen is so precise, and the brush feels like it really forces you to be spontaneous because you don't have any control over it.
Is that Donald up there?
Yes, I made that the day after she died, and I felt like I still had her energy, like I was channeling her somehow.
So are these the two cats that are in
Yes.
The Secret?
Yeah.
I love how they're just there, and that's how cats are.
Yeah, they're just in the back, the background.
Present.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Badger and Wind in the Willows. As a child, I fantasized about living in the woods in a burrow with this cool, my stuff on my shelves, like Badger did. Because I have suffered and it worked out, I feel like, well, suffering must be part of it. I better suffer if I want this next project to work. I personally feel, I think, guilty that I get to have this great life doing my creative work in a way that my parents never got to do. And so I'm sort of punishing myself, well, at least I'm not going to enjoy it, I'm trying to not suffer. Well, it's really an abomination. You get to do this great thing, you should enjoy it. You should feel joy. I actually just finished therapy after 30 years.
You can finish?
You can, apparently.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
I am making progress. I finished therapy. I stopped drinking. So, I didn't stop completely, but I cut way back on my drinking, which was a problem. So I feel like I'm definitely making progress in various ways. Part of the story of this book was trying to get back to that blissful feeling of childhood creativity, when it's just easy and completely all-absorbing. You're not anxious about it. You're just doing your thing. I've always drawn all my life. When I was a kid, it was really fun, and then it became my job somewhere along the way, and so it became quite stressful and anxiety-provoking, and drove me to drink. The book is sort of about how I'm trying to get back to that beginner's mind of childhood, and I feel like that's sort of our job in life in general. Like, children have this immediate grasp of reality that we lose when we, become ourselves and our brains mature and we have to survive. But if you're lucky, you can get to a point where you can reclaim that state. And for me, it has a lot to do with, letting go of the self that we get so attached to. So that's my diary drawing for today.
I made it!
It feels exactly like it did when I was 8. And I just heard a 90-something-year-old woman say she doesn't feel any different than she always has. I'm interested in that experience as I get older, but I feel like I'm just the same person. I don't really relate to getting older in a way, although I certainly am. I know that I am. That's something I really aspire to. There's certain old people, when you watch them walk or move, you know that they are children still. Okay, I'll just hang like this. My eyes closed.
Like a mat.
Yes. Other people are just bowed down by gravity, but there's a certain kind of person who's just like a little elf. And I want to be one of those people.
You can find Alison's new book in bookstores everywhere, and we will get stuck in Vermont with you again real soon. Take care, everybody. Now I know the secret!
I'm just going to blather, okay? Because I hope you're going to just edit the shit out of this.
I know.
And also, should I look at you?
Yes.
Okay.